to streamers out there across our multiple platforms. You might be on YouTube, you might be on Facebook, you might be on one of the Instagrams. So welcome. I'm Aubrey, in case you didn't know. This is Hannah. And I'll let her introduce herself a little more in a minute. But I get to say nice things about her first. Then I'll let her introduce herself. So, Hannah Jenkins, gosh, I've actually known you for, oh my gosh, it's actually been quite a while because that would have been I've known you actually since 2018. So 7 years. Um, she was a student in a program that I helped with. It was how I first met her. And I always liked her. I always thought she was a good one, a good egg, if you will. But I remember a few years ago there was some call, I think, on the platform or something that you were on, and this whole thing kind of went down in this call. And I saw you.
I think it was like just in the text chat thread actually.
Yeah, it was like not like a super dramatic thing. It was subtle. And I saw you like struggling with something or whatever. And I was like, I don't know if anyone's ever had that thing, but it's like where your heart just goes out of your chest and is like, I love you. I want to help, you know? And it's just like there wasn't even an option. Like I was like, I must text her and check on her. And now shall be friends. um and really struck up a friendship, I feel like, at that point. It was just, it was fate. It was fate. At somewhere in there, you were in a coaching circle that I did on the land, also a sutra, when we were like just getting the sutras, the Arrow Sutras, and and Nicole was like literally hadn't even finished writing them, I don't think. And we were kind of like, we have to share these, and say those little coaching circles on the land. And you're at one of those too, which is really wonderful. I think I was liked when you were in the first seat because you're like a quick draw kind of person, where you can think fast on your feet when we would do the prompts. Anyway, I've just always kind of been a fan of Hannah Jenkins, and just think extremely highly of her. And then in the last, um, gosh, was it about, oh, it was over a year and a half ago that we started art school. Oh my gosh. Okay. So over a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, I contacted her because we were starting this thing on the platform. We were starting like an online year-long program. And I had been, I was going to be the program director. And I was like, I need a strong person to do this with me and a strong student holder and like someone who can, and I was like, I've been blessed over the 17 years that I've been part of this thing to have many women, take me under their wing in some way and give me access to, a job or a position or a role or whatever it is, a leadership thing, something like that, where I got to then grow more into my erotic being as a woman. And I was like, I want to take her under my wing and give her this opportunity if she wants to, And I remember where I was when I called you. I remember exactly where I was and what I was doing. And I made you this offer and you were so excited. And like we went on this adventure together. We basically ran art school together. There were lots of other, like guest players, but it was like me and Hannah running it from the back the whole way through. We were like the spine, and I got to know. I always tease Hannah because she's right on the cusp between Sagittarius and Capricorn, which means that she's like kind of like a free-spirited, adventurous, like I go where I will, I can't be saddled by anything kind of thing, like adventurer. Plus, and then you have Capricorn, which is like, hard worker, like very deeply principled, like does not care what other people think, will always put her values first kind of thing. And is like a meticulous detail oriented like worker, you know, and I was tease her and I'm like, oh, you're in your Sagittarius day. Oh, I need a little more Capricorn, you know. So yeah, so I asked her to be on Conversations with Women today. And I will let her introduce herself to you now that I have sung her praises.
Thank you. Yeah, I remember those moments so well as well. And for the record, like you're like, oh, it was like a subtle thing. Over here, it was not subtle. Like I was like crying, and and Aubrey was like, I don't know exactly what she said, but the essence of it was like, do you need a friend? Like, do you need a sane woman? And yeah, I feel like all of the experiences I've had working with you and all the different sort of constellations of that, it's always been like you really bring through that essence of like friend first, or like friends no matter what underneath every form and construct. And yeah, like the opportunity to like work with you in art school, I felt at every sort of turn. Even okay, I'll just tell a quick story that there was this moment that I completely fucked up the schedule. And like, everyone was like what time, like it was some time zone thing. And I was just like about to
We had like
like
8
completely
time zones.
yeah. And I was just like about to completely collapse. Like, I completely fucked this up. Obviously gonna be so mad at me. And she was literally like the way that you held up a mirror to me in this moment was basically like, if you collapse into shame here, it's completely on you because I'm not putting any of that into this space. And you're basically like, if it happened all the time, it would be a different situation. But it was just like, you
I'd have to shame you if it happened all the time.
you know, I was just like, oh, you just held up like the clearest mirror in that moment. And I feel like that's how you've always been with like, and how you are with women and their power in general. So yeah, just a pleasure. And because it might be relevant for the topics today, like like a year and a half ago, I actually became a minister, and Aubrey is on the Council of Elders for the church that I am part of. So that's another fun way that we're like, I just was like, I know that she's someone that I want to like do this thing with for a long time.
Yeah. I love that. Okay, that's the perfect introduction to kind of go into what I thought we could talk about today. So I've talked about this in actually some of my like TikTok videos and Instagram videos and things that I've put out. I read this book that I was obsessed with. I haven't read a few books on this topic, but I read this one recently that got really obsessed with called The Immortality Key, and I talked about that a lot. And just have always been, but particularly in the last couple of years, just because of everything this community has gone through, I've become particularly fascinated with like the witch hunting era, and then also Wave, and before that, the Mary Magdalene era, who she really was, and then who she was painted to be. I've become very fascinated with like that kind of smear campaign because it's become something that's hits home. It really hits deeply home. Um, and and then kind of like the role of religion and all of it, and like the Catholic Church, and um, you know, it's been a huge influence in all of these different ways throughout history, both extremely negative and extremely positive. Um, and just like spirituality in general, feminine versus masculine spirituality, and all of this stuff. And these are things that, so I'm like a nerd for these things. Like I love books that are related to these subjects. I love thinking about these things. I like making videos about these things. I like tripping out about about these things. And this is where, I mean, Hannah and I have a lot of crossover on our interests, but this is probably one of the deepest spots that we have like the nerdiest, deepest, most feminine crossover. And she has a lot of um I mean, this is partly, the realm in which she practices, and is really building a whole thing with her church that she's created with partner, um, that, you know, has its roots in some of this. And so I only know a little bit of it, you know, and I'm on the council of elders, which just sounds like Lord of the Rings or something. Like, it's so cool. Like I'm on a council of elders. And so I know like the transmission of the thing from her. But I wanted to kind of invite out, you know, her conversation more around this today. And I don't know, I'm talking about you in the third person. Hello. I wanted to invite out your wisdom and your thoughts on some of these things today. And you know, if you want to start with what your church is and what that's about, and you know, that it could be a great place to start. And then we could just kind of go from there.
Sure. Yeah, and definitely partly greatly inspired by some of the conversations Aubrey and I have had about like, masculine spirituality and feminine spirituality. And like, I would say it's like masculine spirituality is like very much like transcendent based. Like, oh, I need to like fix these like in like tumescent, right? Which is like always about like I have to fix and I have to get somewhere. And then feminine spirituality, I wouldn't always say that it's like purely immanence, but it is like the fully incarnating. And like to me, unionized spirituality is like it's like you come all the way in, you descend fully, because it's only in sort of the lowest lows of our being that like some of the densest material for alchemy exists. And so it's not about like, oh, I'm just going to avoid like my sexuality, right? Which is what most transcendent spirituality wants to do. It wants you to avoid the dark, avoid the pain and the shadow and all of this stuff. But actually, and what I believe like the purpose of our human experience is to like alchemize all of that, and like to take the like it's like untapped potential. Ultimately, we know this from the erotic path. And so what does it mean to like fully descend into all of those places and then convert or like transubstantiate that material into a different substrate? I believe that we actually become lighter through this process, and not by avoiding the density, but actually like going through it. And so yeah, I really, you could also call it in certain ways like the middle path, if there's the left hand path and the right hand path, and the right hand path is the transcendent one. And the left hand path, like, because in my view, it's like either to their extreme brings you outside of the truth, because the truth is like there's two halves of reality, or there's two, like, I believe that we're always already moving in both directions, or like we can be like there's always a way for us to be going deeper down and in, and also like more up and out expressed. Like one way is like we're always being refined in our essence, and like if you want to be more refined in your essence, you have to express more, because then you'll get the reflections back that will help you distill. So it's like, how can you, and like similar to transceiving in an ohm, right? Like how can you have like this down and in channel of your being and this up and out channel of your being, like both online within yourself?
I love that. Like the union of the two. Yeah, I love that because the human mind loves to pick one, tell you to pick one or the other. Or, well, I guess the tumescent mind, you know, which you can read about. If you're unfamiliar with that, you can read about it in maybe a friendly person on the Zoom and the stream could post the tumescence volume, a link into there for people. But it's like the tumescent mind, you know, that part of the mind that's never satisfied. It always wants to separate and have you pick a side. I mean, we see this so much with like politics, for example, you know. But it goes on every single level. And I love looking at it that way of like there's two motions almost that your being wants to do. Like it wants to go down and in and deep to the depths, and it also wants to express like up and out, you know, vertical and horizontal. It's like it wants a full embodied thing of both. And how do you kind of train your and I guess this would be my next question is like, how do you work with your own being to not go with that kind of tricky mind impulse to pick one or the other, you know, and to like to like work with both, you know? And do you kind of work with one more at times and then the other and then both, or like how do you kind of train yourself to do both?
I think um first thought, best thought, and like the whole first generation, like living at that first generation of the thought or the idea or the conversation, and like just basically acting and expressing sooner before that thought can like even
Mm,
take hold, because it's so much harder to break out and say something if you have like 10 layers of thoughts about why you shouldn't do it, like on top of it already. So it's like if you can just get out of in front before like the tumescent mind kind of closes in on you that way, that's, I would say, the best practice for me. And so like, something I've said a lot to my clients and stuff is like, have your process out here and you will grow and transform so much faster. Right. And I think like, especially with like there's like a lot of perfectionism in spirituality in general. And
mm,
like to me, the antidote to that is like have your process out here. The essence of like that spiritual perfectionism is like, okay, I'm gonna like do everything inside of myself and like get it right, and then I'll come out and say words.
mm-hmm.
And it completely ignores what we know from Eros about like how dynamic we are. So it's like if you're doing that, then you're coming from a past version of yourself, and it's already has like, it's like the diminishing returns, or like I would say like the amount of aliveness is already gone if you're trying to do it all inside yourself. So like, can you have your process out here, like in connection, or like by actually creating something out here, and then learning how to work with the reflections that you get back is really important too, right? Because you don't want to just be like, okay, this person said that I'm full of shit, like I must be full of shit. It's like, how do you actually like take those, and sorry if I'm not supposed to swear, but like how do I take the reflections I get back and actually work with them in like a valuable way where I'm not forgetting who I am or assuming someone else knows better than me, but then I'm also like taking them in to be refined by. So it's like, if there's this up and out and this down and in, how are you like, yeah, simultaneously putting out and taking in what you're getting back?
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So the activity that you're doing in exploring the depths of life and the depths of who you are, and doing the spelunking down into a cave, and then the activity of expression, up and outward expression, um is, I mean, this, it sounds so obvious, but it's like inextricably tied to how you're um receiving as well,
Mm.
like how it's like, are you
And digesting.
yeah, yeah, so that makes sense. I mean, as you talk about it, I can picture the energetic system of it around a human form, and like the imagery of it is very vivid as you describe it, and very dynamic. And I like what you said about first thought, best thought, because you're basically saying that's our natural state. And so just be you. Like, it's like do your damnedest to practice being you. And I always trust anything that like comes back to that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, oh, yep, oh yeah, that's right. That philosophies that arrive you back to that are usually pretty solid. Yeah, and like in some sense, I feel like that's the whole practice of life, is like to have the odyssey and arrive back to you, or to learn how to express who you are, in real time, in the first generation of it, which sounds, what is it, simple but not easy, right? Especially,
That's
I
the
mean,
essence of all of it, the whole path.
yeah, and I think, and I want to know your thoughts on it. I think it's harder for women.
Hmm.
What do you think? What do you think on that one?
Harder for women to live at the first generation. Hmm.
For
And
at
that
least for where we are currently in the world. Maybe it hasn't always been, but this is my thought, and you might disagree.
yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like I would just hesitate to fully agree, because what if someone uses that as a justification for why it's harder? Like, I just don't think that reasons about why it's harder for a certain group like is helpful to some extent. It's like, because I just don't want to, like, I wouldn't fully endorse that, in the sense that, like, I don't want it to come back, like, I don't want to ever hear it as an excuse, like,
I like that.
you know but
Yeah.
I don't know. I think a lot of men
See, you
are
guys
really
see the
trapped
Capricorn?
in
That's the
rejection.
Capricorn. She hardcore.
Like, I think a lot of men are really scared of fucking up too. Like, I don't
True.
know. I can't speak for them, that experience, but like, my sense is that they also are very afraid of fucking up.
True. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely see that. Um, yeah, I think yeah, I agree. Not don't give anybody any excuses here. But I think the reason why I say it's harder is that's probably not the best description of what I really mean. I think I mean all genders have some specific challenges that
Mhm.
come with it. Um, and I feel like oftentimes, not all times, but I feel like men oftentimes have a beautiful, like, general sense of rightness with who they are. Like, I've never, I can't think of a single time, to be totally honest with you, that I've ever heard a man talk about himself or his life, or, you know, listing insecurities or something, where it felt like the way women seem to feel, a lot of women seem to feel almost like they were just born wrong. Like, it's this wrong, they're just wrong. And I don't know if it's like the Eve and the apple thing, I don't know if we're just, it's just being a woman is a sin, is kind of how it feels or something. And So men totally have their whole own set of challenges and insecurities for sure. And I feel like women with their particular set, a lot of times women struggle with that first generation. Like, we're
Mm.
too good at it. Like, we're too good at putting
I,
forward.
I think I know what, yeah, like, where we agree fully on this. And it's like, and I've referenced this a lot, like, and I don't know where Nicole might have originally referenced this, but like, that the default setting for men is to like pretend that they know, and the default setting for women is to pretend that they don't know. And so it's like, if you want to like kind of break that conditioning, you do the opposite. And so it's like, for a man, that first generation more often would be like, I'm not sure. And for the woman, the first generation would be like, fucking listen to me, you know?
That's hot. Yeah, that's hot. I like that. I like that a lot. Um, tell me some more on your views on masculine and feminine and union, and how that what element of your church, like, tell me a little more about that element of things.
Hmm. So, oh, lots of different
It's probably a pretty
potential
big
places
topic.
to go there. um, so let's see. I would say that we tend to lead a bit more with the feminine. And I would also say, like, I wrote a post about this recently. I meant to send it to you actually, but it's like, even like within Christianity, for instance, there's like a very exoteric, like, sort of religious dogma stream that is like the streamlined, used for social, political control, conquest, all of that. And then
Mhm.
there's esoteric stream. Like, in Buddhism too, it talks about like there's the outer, the inner, the secret. And Christianity has the same. And I'm backing into your question too, which is like, the feminine half of reality is the one that we're currently putting more attention on developing, or most people are currently putting more attention on developing. And with any sort of two pole situation, typically you need to have an experience of both poles to be able to like have some kind of, even if it's not like a single moment of integration, like I would say on the transcendent path or a masculine spirituality path, the idea is like you just integrate and you have like one moment of integration, or like through the narrow gate or the eye of the needle or the 0 point, like however you want to say that. And then it's like you go through this doorway and then you're on this new plane of non-dual reality. And I think that's one way. And then the feminine is like, I'm going to expand and to include both and like allow them to exist and like have access to this entire spectrum. And that's when you could then arise as whatever the moment calls for, because it's like you have access to all of this and you're the sort of greater being or consciousness behind it that can like move through all of those little places. So the union is like being able to have facility with both the expand and include, and also like sometimes you would want to integrate, neutralize, like collapse out the distorted extremes in some cases perhaps. So back to the like esoteric and the exoteric, right? It's like in our church, we really hold the pole of like the esoteric Christian stream, so that just like as a lot of people are getting really loud about the importance of the feminine and the feminine pole like coming back into its fullness, right? Like and I don't like balancing. I want a better word than balancing, but
I know what you
like
mean.
esoteric back into its fullness so that there can be like an integration. And I don't know which kind of integration, if it'll be like that kind or like this kind or some combination of both. But yeah, I feel like the exoteric and the esoteric within Christianity is doing that. And then on the whole, like the masculine and then the feminine is like really coming back, and there's going to be like however many ways you can say it, like a pole shift, a consciousness shift, like we're evolving, whatever language you would
Yeah,
use for that part.
I love that. Yeah, that how did you phrase it? Ensuring, like this is how I heard it, was like ensuring the esoteric stream is present in Christianity. Is that a decent translation?
Yeah, like
That is
re-enlivening it to its fullness.
re-enlivening
It
it.
had to
Okay,
like
love
go
that.
dormant to survive, just like the feminine kind of had to go dormant to survive, and now it's like, okay, we're coming out of survival. We're coming out of hiding.
Now it's a volcano. Um, yeah, that feels really key in these times, there is definitely a resurgence in culture of the desire for religion and spirituality and traditional values. Not everybody feels that way. Nobody panic if you're listening to this, or freak out and start commenting reactively. You really can save yourself the energy because I make room for all the views you hear. But there is a resurgence of that happening, and it just reflects a need and a deep desire for some kind of container for consistent access to God or spirituality or whatever you want to call it, but some kind of a consistent, you know, access to something bigger than you that loves you. I guess like whatever you want to call that. I would call it God. I'm comfortable with that word. If you're not, you call it something else. But yeah, there's a resurgence of more like of a desire for more structure around it. I think for a while there was sort of a structureless spirituality that kind of took hold more prominently in culture, and then it feels like it's shifting back into a desire for like a deeper level of containment. I mean, I think also with so much instability and chaos in the world, and challenge and scary things happening and all of that, of course there's a desire for more containment. Like, of course there's a desire for, potentially developing more of a connection to God.
Mhm.
That makes perfect sense. And in the resurgence of that, I personally, when you said that about the esoteric, and you were like, basically, you're saying the esoteric is the representation of the feminine in Christianity. The exoteric is the masculine, as esoteric is feminine. And when you said that, I felt this thing in my heart and was like, oh my God, yes, please make sure that that goes in there. Like, yes, if you and Clay and your council of elders and everyone involved in this, and anyone else out there who's involved in ensuring this, let's please make sure the feminine makes it in there. However, we need to do it, let's make sure. Because, yeah, I mean, I would love to see a world where Christian religion had that integrated. What in the heck would that be like? I think it would be like when Jesus actually did walk the earth with Mary Magdalene and she was on equal footing to him. This is what the secret histories say. She was on equal footing with him and performed all the miracles beside him. And I think that was maybe the last time we had it integrated. Thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah, so the esoteric feminine, or the esoteric stream within Christianity, like originally it was it was basically John and Mary Magdalene who were carrying that lineage, like in early Christian history. And we only have fragments of Mary Magdalene's gospel ultimately, and like
because
in it
because on purpose. Because smear campaigns.
well, yeah, I mean, I would do almost with anything to, like, read some of these texts in their fullness. And there is that part where it's like, she was his favorite and they had a special relationship. And I'll just say, like, because I think that with every text that you read, and I'd love to know, like, if you have a practice of like engaging with like text or any scripture, right? And it's like there's like the words, and then there's like the felt sense of it. And like, especially so I actually recently was where do I want to start this? I guess when I went to France last year and I went to some of the Cathar sites. So, and you and I talked a little bit about the Cathars recently, which is like an early Christian group that was persecuted by the Catholic Church, and more people were actually burned alive during that crusade, genocide, whatever you want to call it. Genocide's kind of a charged word, but I think it applies here, right? And um, then in a lot of the witch trials, and I don't have all of the numbers in my head. I don't really retain numbers. Like with the things that I read as I'm going into this, it's like, there I retain the things that feel relevant and true and that I would bring up again, and then I kind of like the rest of it just kind of like goes out. But I read some of the actual text, and there's not a lot of text that have survived from like the Cathar practice. And I didn't feel like the text fully represented the essence of what I felt when I felt was in those places, like walking in their footsteps and like feeling into the essence of it. And so when I'm reading, and like, we'll talk about Genesis for a second, because like if I've tried to read, or I have read Genesis, I've read Exodus, I've read little bits more of the Old Testament, and it's like my whole body just like completely contracts and closes when I try and tap into it. And it's like, I'm like, this Lord is not like the one like prime source creator who created all. Like, no part of, like, I know how that feels in my body, and that's not what I feel when I encounter this. And so I went down this sort of rabbit hole, and in Gnosticism, which is the John and Mary Magdalene esoteric lineage, the idea, and the Cathars had their own version of this that's like a little more intense, which is basically like everything about the material world is wrong, you know. But the Gnostics are very much like, we are meant to transcend materiality, but we're meant to go on like a alchemical journey of inner realization to do so. And their interpretation of Genesis is basically that Sophia, who was an offspring of this like original prime source creator, decided to get experimental one day and create without connection or without the consent or connection in tandem with her consort. And so she created this world. And then she was kind of like, oh, shoot, what have I done? And like tried to hide it away. And her son, I don't remember his name, but is basically like, this world is mine and I'm the boss here, you know, and he's very like insecure and controlling, basically, if we're going to really humanize him. Like that's sort of his essence. He's like insecure and controlling. And that when Adam and Eve are created, right, they actually have more of a spark of that one source than he does. And so he's jealous, and he's the voice that's like, do not eat from this tree. So it's like the moment that she eats the apple or the pomegranate is actually the beginning of humanity awakening. And so I love this interpretation of that story, because the traditional, the exoteric biblical one does not do it for me. I read it and I'm like, this does not feel right. This does not feel true. And it's like, obviously there's historical evidence of matriarchal cultures that existed before that story took place. And so it's like, you know, and
plus it's rooted in like right out the gate, women are evil, you know. We fucked up. We fucked
versus
it up
like,
right
oh, women are the ones who are, yeah. Versus women are meant to lead the return to like inside and like inner realization and revelation and all that. So
wait, so you're telling me in this telling of the story, Earth was the result of a woman's impulsive desire that she didn't check first with her male consort? There's something so funny about that. That's wild. And she was like, oh shit.
but then and then like
that just rings true, you know, it just feels right. Earth totally has that vibe.
well, and then there's also this beautiful next part of this story, which is that like basically Sophia sees what her son has done, and he's created like demons essentially to like help him control this planet. And she basically like goes and repents, and then that's what has Christ come.
Oh man.
To like bring us out of like whatever, like to be sort of like a lighthouse for like how we can, you know, return.
Shit. This is wild. Hannah, I don't know. I feel like maybe she failed us in the repenting. You know, like
well,
should she have really repented?
I feel like
yeah. Well, this is my because this
love.
what this
like
is
it's
what
like love for the essence, and like, you know, how can the like the wheat from the chaff, or like the like separate the I don't know
okay, now
is.
did she repent from the like okay, because here's the thing in the erotic path of woman, all right? Is like it's true, it's easier. I mean, we have this force running through us. I mean, we have this creative force running through us. We have this erotic force running through us. It's very intense. As you said at the beginning of the call, you know, one of the things that gets suppressed, you said something like one of the things that gets suppressed out the gate most is sexuality. So a lot of times, you know, what we're hungry for, we have shame around, suppress, whatever, and then it breaks out you know, in some way because we can't hold it down because it's like a force of nature. And then we go and have some of the things, you know, and we do them outside of connection. And of course that's easier, you know. And so really the erotic path of a woman is to do that, but within connection. So to dissolve the shame and then to go for all the things you're hungry for right out in the open, in the full light of day, in connection with, you know, whatever you're in this story, it's the consort, but it could be whatever, you know, like let your family see who you really are, you know, like let your friends see who you really are. Tell your boyfriend your actual desires, you know, like that kind of thing. And so then maybe she's repenting for the disconnection.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think
Okay. I'll allow it. I'll
it's
allow
like
it.
out of ultimate love for the creation. And like at first I hid it away. Like at first I hid it away in shame, but now it's like let's like bring it to light and like do what's actually most of service to life, I would say.
Which and then therefore bringing the Christ consciousness into the world, which I always think, I mean, my dad's super Christian, you know, we have these cool conversations about this stuff where I have to get pretty, I have to go pretty deep to find our common ground. But where we always end up is, you know, he's a deep believer in Jesus, and I really feel like on on a actual level, on a metaphorical level, however you want to think about it, that energy, that Christ consciousness, it opens it literally opens a dimension on the planet of unconditional love.
Mhm.
And so it's actually, I'm coming around to the repenting. I don't love the word repenting, but I'm coming around to it. I'm like, okay, her action of acknowledging this thing that she did not in connection opened, you know, allowed for this Christ consciousness to come through, which was essentially bringing a dimension of unconditional love into this creation she had made.
Mhm.
So okay,
And
okay,
like,
I'm into it.
yeah. And I also really like anthroposophy, and you know the idea is that through that incarnation, or through his like through him basically entering the planet, which like another way you could say it, if we're talking like masculine and feminine, ovum and sperm, it's like, you know, she called for that like penetration of solar energy, right? The sun. And like when that entered the core of the planet, every human who was born thereafter incarnated with some portion of that within themselves that will
Oh
like sort of
wow.
activate it, carry them on their own alchemical path.
Hmm. Beautiful. Really beautiful. Yeah, I like it. Trippy. um, yeah, it's really cool.
And I'll
Mm,
say sometimes
yeah.
I still find my language around like the sacrifice and the martyr and like some of that language, and like, you know, your reaction to that word like repent, you know, and like certain renunciation, and like there's all of these words that I feel like were part of the reintegration of the feminine half or the esoteric half, is like finding, and like I love the way you described it with your dad. It's like I have to go really deep to find the common ground. And it's
Mhm.
also like I feel like that's what we need to do to like get the language that feels good.
Mm, I love that. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I like this whole like theology, I guess. There's a way how you talk about it makes all of these like, you know, shapes and images and um, you know, like the transmission that you bring around it brings a lot of like, yeah, like imagery into the mind in a way that doesn't I don't always experience. It's really cool. So tell me a little more. Oh, wow, 2:15 already. So we'll begin to move towards closing, but tell me about your thoughts on um like religion and spirituality and the need and desire for that in this current age that we're in. You know, like what do you see? I don't know why the word medicine is coming to mind. Like, I don't, you know, I don't want to like insert too much, but what do you see with that and the people's relationship with that right now?
I think the most important thing for this precise juncture in time is like actually being fully in your body and like not leaving. Like I really think that it's to feel secure in a connection to the divine, you need to feel it through your own body. And like the body isn't the deepest part of us, but it's a gateway to the deepest part of us, is how I would sort of say that. And I also feel like the more disembodied you are, the more susceptible you are to just influences of the world, shall we say, or like, influences that don't actually resonate with the deepest part of you. And so like being fully in your body, whatever, like to me, something that I check for a lot is like, can I actually like feel my own presence in like my hands and feet? Like, cause that's like to me a sign that like my consciousness is actually like distributed in my body fully.
Mm.
And I don't know, like I think Om is the best thing there is for that, truly. And I think that whatever, like I would say that before Om, I was a yoga teacher, and I would say that I was like, in my body to like about here, you know. And then like with Om, I was like, oh, I can like fully like push into all of like my fingers and toes, and yeah, it just feels like there's no one's going to have a secure connection to the divine without being in their body. And the reason that people lean so much on the exoteric structures, on the dogma, whatever system you come from, is because you don't have that inner access, that like sort of like interior door that you can open and feel completely connected. It's like I believe that we all have this direct line to our creator within us. And that's what the Cathars were teaching. They were like, you don't need, like, because the Catholic Church, what I learned that was so interesting recently is the reason, like, the Eucharist or like the whole ritual, the reason they created so many rituals was to make themselves relevant. Like, every reason you needed to go to church was reifying their relevance. And then, the whole thing the Cathars were saying is like, you don't need a priest, you don't need an intermediary, right? And then they were so like just genocided for that. I am going to
Right.
use
They
the
were
term
like, death to you.
like,
How dare you say that?
yeah. And so that's what it is to me. And I just don't think that we had that inner access without first like really coming into our body and like staying in our body. And I think people do this, like there's like, and this is also like going back to like the transceiving and the 2 tracks. It's like people be weird sometimes. Like I was at this event recently and it was like, here's like a whole training. And then afterwards they'd be like, okay, now we're getting back in our body. Like, move your body around, get back in your body. And I'm like, what is this? I hate this. Like, I hate this. Like, I don't leave my body just because someone's talking to me. And I think that this whole like, I feel like this is what Eros like really teaches us the most is like, I can be connected to you and I'm feeling you in this moment, but I'm not feeling myself, And I think that the whole idea that like we can only like we like must lose ourselves or come out of our body to any extent in order to learn or do something mental or have a conversation with another person. It's like why, I don't know, I just feel like that's like an unnecessary way that we fragment or limit ourselves in some way. And so the reason I think the world is scary to some people, like very scary to a lot of people right now. And so there's this big resurgence of like, what can I lean on outside of myself? Like big resurgence of return to dogma. I think you started to touch on this, right? Like so many people going back to exoteric Christianity in a really hardcore way. And it's like, desperation, right? It's like, oh, I feel scared and I'm not fully in my own body. So I just need to like really anchor myself to something fixed. And then what I love the most about the erotic path, right, is like how much permission for dynamism there is. And like how really, yeah, like if you're not in your body, like you can't really do anything else erotically, right? And so I feel like the thing that's needed the most is like for everyone to like have a secure attachment with God that I believe we only have through being in our body fully.
Be in your body. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's not, because where you go if you're not in your body is into your head. And it sounds crazy because smear campaign against the body and its impulses. But the body is actually capable of holding you through holding consciousness through total chaos and a very, a ship in a storm at sea, with a lot of grounding and grace, whereas the mind just kind of flips the fuck out. Like, and of course, you could do many practices where you work with the mind and you learn how to work with your monkey mind and you learn how to calm your mind and you learn how to get your stream of thought, like cleaned up and calmed down. But generally speaking, the mind is kind of hair trigger. It's
Mhm.
not actually that reliable. Like we're taught young that it's like superior, it's intellectual and it's superior and it's smart and it's better than the body and blah blah blah. But it actually can't hold very much. The slightest bit of sensation or chaos or anything, and it's just kind of like chicken little, like all the time. So yeah, the body is definitely the place to be in these wild, wild times. Come down into the body. Absolutely. That's the medicine. That's really good.
Yeah.
Well,
And
this
it's
was,
also like
yeah, go
I
ahead.
feel like another like sort of point of union, right, is like between like is like or like a spectrum, right, is like certainty and uncertainty. And the body like really represents kind of like the uncertainty counterpole to the mind that's like, I must know. Like there's that sutra, right? The tumescent mind must know.
Yeah.
And like you just actually like bring the uncertainty pole into the equation a bit more.
Mm, yeah. And it's the body, it's being in the body that can actually hold that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Really good. I love that. Okay. Love this conversation. This is great. We could have like an 8-part series or something. So maybe we'll figure out how to do that at some point. But yeah, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. If you came on the Zoom or on a stream on one of our social media platforms, great having you. Um, I believe we have Turn On World tomorrow on the platform, and we have our men's and women's groups on Sunday. And then we'll be back on Monday with an Eros Revolution episode as well. So lots of things going on every day. Tune on in, and I will see you guys on other calls soon.